Tomorrow's talk is going to be a little bit more about how we should drive growth in any economic outlook. But I thought today I might share something interesting from this book that I put together. But essentially, one of the things that I realized as a marketer that's really important is our connection to finance. Oftentimes as marketers, our biggest challenge is to convince our business partners and our finance partners that investing more money into marketing is actually really, really good for revenues, for sales. But oftentimes the challenge we face is our business partners and our finance partners say, but that's a lot of money I'm taking out, and I don't know if there's a return on that investment. So I spent a lot of time working with a lot of finance partners, and I'm glad to say that I've been able to convince all of my finance partners to not only say yes, but they say yes and, aka, how much more do you want? Because I have spent a lot of time really connecting between what is really important in terms of marketing, but also what they care about, which is how much money am I getting back and when. So I wanted to share something that I thought was really interesting during my kind of like research. One of my favorite case studies, and also secretly I love Disneyland, so I was like, let's talk about Disneyland. I really want to share with you what I call the power of emotional marketing and also loyalty. We as marketing leaders, we all understand emotional marketing. We all also understand loyalty, because if you can get people to keep coming back, you don't have to spend as much on them to acquire them in the first place. But if you were to say this to any business or finance person, their eyes will just completely glaze over, and they will say, I don't believe you. I don't believe that if you put a lot of money into telling people about what the brand stands for, how emotional it is, that somehow down the line, someone's gonna pay money to buy that product or to use that service. Like, most business and finance leaders don't believe it because they want to see immediate returns. But here's the case study that I think is really interesting. We all know Disney. And so Disneyland, the one that I'm going to talk about specifically, is the one that started in LA. So that one is a small resort versus the many, many Disney resorts now are all around the world. But it first started in LA as a place that Walt Disney wanted everyone to come and really experience what it means to be part of the Disney franchise. He wanted to make this place the most magical place in the world. If you look at the brand value of Disney versus S&P 500, one of our favorite indices that we like to look at in the US, it shows you just how fast the growth is when it comes to Disney. And the reason Disney has a really strong growth oftentimes is linked to their brand. So almost everyone knows what Disney is. And it's because they spend a lot of their time and energy on building their brand and the emotions behind Disney. Very rarely when you ask someone about Disney, they don't know what it is, or they go, oh, Disney just sells things, right? It's usually like, oh, I know Disney because I love this favorite thing that I watch. I know Disney because I went to Disneyland. I know Disney because my kids love Disney. My kids love Disney because of the... So it's all about that. And the reason I want to bring up brand value is a lot of people don't know this, but at least in the US, a lot of the brand value oftentimes show up in a financial balance sheet. One of the places we call it intangible assets. So in a balance sheet, which is a lot what finance spends a lot of time looking at, they want to understand how much do they have on the books that they have available for different things, and how much are they indebted, how much do they owe going out, and they like to balance it. And oftentimes there is a section called assets and intangible assets, meaning you can't figure out what this asset class is, but there's dollars associated with it. And usually, brand actually sits in that asset class as intangible. Usually, when a brand is really strong, their value is really strong, and it's something that actually allows them to borrow against in the future. So from a financial standpoint, having a very strong brand actually drives a tremendous amount of power to use capital and money later to do other things. So that's one of the reasons I love talking about brand, because most finance people, business leaders don't think about this, but it is so important. Back to Disneyland. So Disneyland was created in 1955 as the happiest place on earth. This is what they spend all of their marketing on. if you think about Disneyland, actually I don't even think I've ever seen an ad that says, go buy tickets. Tickets are on sale. Never. It's always, if you think about the commercials that they run, it's always like families looking very joyful, very excited. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so happy, I'm so excited. They never talk about buying tickets. But what do they want people to do? Buy tickets. That's what they want. But they spend a lot more time on the emotions of why should you buy tickets. Because let's be honest, those tickets are very, very expensive. Very. I did math, and I was like, what does it really cost for a family of 4, parents, 2 kids, to go to Disneyland for 3 days at Disneyland? So like a 4-day, 3-night trip, which is like a typical vacation. Here's for the US what it costs. So starting off with $1,100 per day. That includes Disneyland tickets for those 3 days to hop around. Also includes parking. Also includes what they call the Genie Pass, which is like you can skip a lot of lines. Let's be honest, if you're a parent with 2 kids, you want to skip as many lines as you can. It ends up being about $1,100 per day, which ends up being $3,300. Then you're going to have to fly there. Usually for a family of 4, round-trip airfare is around $3,000. Now, you're going to have to stay somewhere near, and so for a 2 to 3 star hotel that's close enough, you're going to spend probably about $250 a night. Then at Disneyland, you're going to have to eat, you're going to have to buy some souvenirs, and that's going to cost you probably about $50 a day a person. Now, if you did all that math, it ends up being about $7,650 for just this trip. Now, then I did the other math, which is, let's talk about the average family. How much do they actually make, right? So the average U.S. household income per month after taxes is about $4,600. Then you take away what you need for housing, for transportation, for regular food, and you're left with a family that has about $1,100 per month of disposable income that they can use for other things, fun things, travel. So if you were to do this math and you were to say, if it costs $7,000 to go on this trip and I get about $1,000 a month of disposable income, in order for you to take your family of 4 to Disneyland, you have to basically save 7 months. 7 months. That's a lot of saving. And this is like no other vacations, like at all. This is, you're gonna save up. And if you think about it, a lot of families do this. They do save up to take their kids to Disneyland. And so if you look at the revenues, well, if it's this expensive, if it takes 7 months of disposable income, would people still do this? And the answer is yes, they do. And they do this a lot. The only 2 years it's not growing is 2020 and 2021, COVID. That was the only reason. As soon as COVID was kind of near the end, 2020, it skyrocketed back to the growth trajectory that was always on. And every year those tickets get higher. But every year people keep going back. And one of the things that I find really fascinating about all this is Disneyland has 94% guest satisfaction rate, and 75% of those guests plan to return within the next 5 years. So their loyalty is very, very high. And I think one of the things that is really interesting about this is the fact that Disney never talks about what they're actually wanting people to do, which is buy tickets, go to my resort. They spend all their time on the emotions. Why should you take your kids? Because it's the happiest place on earth. It is magical. And because of that slight change in that it's not a transaction that they're having with the parents, it's not like you're paying for 50% off on these tickets. It's more like you're bringing something so magical to your kids they're going to remember forever, that parents are then willing to save 7 months of their disposable income to take their kids for just 3 days of joy. And that's what I call emotional marketing that drives loyalty. And the reason why I want to bring it up here is oftentimes we spend a lot of our time thinking about more of the quicker kind of relationship that we're building with our customers. And so we forget how important it is to explain to our customers why they should choose us. That's not just the immediate action we want. Like, click on this post, join me on this mailing list. Even in my case, buy my book. But the reason that doesn't work as well as if you explain the reason behind it, like you want to click on this post because we want to share more information with you. You want to join my list because we have so much more that we can give you to help you. you want to buy my book because I have so many more tips in there that is going to be helpful. Giving the reason and that emotional reason is actually going to help you build that loyalty much, much faster and much longer. And so that is my spiel for now, but I'm open to questions if we have time.
I actually have a question because I think one of the struggles, even for us as a marketing agency, is trying to convince brands to invest in their branding instead of the short-term strategy of focusing on the sales. What is your advice in those cases? How would you manage that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, I bet the marketing team is not thinking about investing long term and they're investing short term because they're having pressure from their leadership. And this is where I say just half the time I spend is actually having a really good relationship with my finance and business teams because it's them that's holding back marketing because oftentimes they're the ones like, okay, I don't want to give you another 100K for an event because I don't know where that is going. I want to only put that 100K in direct sales where I can see the money come through. But what they're missing is they don't understand the opportunity what that creates. So my advice is actually have a conversation, not just with their marketing team, but with their business and finance leadership to help them understand actually when you invest more in branding, you're going to see this type of return at this point. So usually I give people kind of like the average time brands kind of like make a lot of sense. It takes about like 6 months at least. Because usually you need to repeat the same things and the same values over and over again before a customer will will understand what you're trying to do. And so I would actually advise you to sit down with your business and finance leadership. And you can use the Disneyland example. There are many other examples. Coca-Cola is a great example of investing a lot in brand. And that would be, I would say, a starting point to getting them their marketing team enough support to actually do branding.
What is the most, I'm going to ask you guys, what is the most successful restaurant in the world? Fast food.
Oh, fried food. McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's, 4% of the total sales have to go into marketing. That's number one. Number two, they work on emotions, but through usually, I went to run McDonald's University, so I know a little bit about it. They work on emotions, like you say. Try to get people get excited about eating Big Mac or having the kids come in for Happy Meals and stuff like that. So it's the kids really that pull in the parents who go to McDonald's. It's not the parents that want to go to the kids eat.
They still have that?
Pardon?
They still have that? They don't even know.
You don't see it, but believe me, the Happy Meals, they're the most successful right now. They were my client for 20 years. So.
I know. Yeah.
And that's what drives me. And another thing that's very interesting, usually you have something that's inexpensive, right? They have like a sale or something. You know why they have the sale? To get you to the restaurant. And for you to, they sell you up to the product. So let's say there's a Big Mac Happy Meal, or there's a Happy Meal for $3, but they'll try to sell you an ice cream or a shake or whatever. That's the thing to do. But it's another way of marketing. But like you say, it's emotions that
Yes.
drive the sale.
Have you seen like a shift in customer behavior, seen especially after COVID with the economic climate, inflation? Have you seen a shift from people going maybe less emotional to maybe more tactical, or has it stayed the same?
I would say what I've seen is kind of like to the ends. So there were brands that went after COVID, 2022 beyond, that went really transactional. That's like, let's just work. Okay. So first, the economic climate changed and where everyone was a little bit concerned about what was happening in the economy after COVID, right? Lots of businesses went on pause, lots of businesses needed to recoup. So there was a lot of tightening of belts everywhere. So half the businesses went down the route of, okay, well, we need to recoup as much of the dollars we lost during COVID as we can. So they're going to go transactional, like very heavy on getting as many sales in now to help bridge some of the gaps from the past. And then I've also seen businesses go the other way, which is they actually went straight into more emotions because they realized coming out of COVID, there were certain needs that actually people wanted to feel more connected with one another. So the brands that are probably closer to the hospitality side of the world actually went more emotional. Let's talk about bringing people together. And so I've seen kind of like kind of a movement into both ends. And I always say that marketing matters most when you can do both, not at the same time per se, but at different places. So I always say, like, for someone like Disneyland, most of their marketing is around the emotions, but then if you go one layer deep, they already know that their customers are going to find all the transactional things. Their customers will tell other customers, I saw this value, if you buy it through here, you get 50% discount. So they're like, we're gonna let our customers do more of the transactional conversations, but we're gonna focus more on the emotional. And other businesses do something very similar where they also kind of leverage other types of either marketing channels to do more of the transactional while they do more of the kind of more upper funnel stuff. One thing I would say that recently I've seen, especially during COVID and post, is the rise of influencers. So even at Amazon, we use a ton of them, and we use them for different purposes. Most of the time, we use them for these smaller influencers that have more kind of closer ties to their customers or their audiences, and we actually use them to tell more of a value story. Like, did you know that you can, right now in the Prep video, it's like, did you know you can watch this and get this benefit when you join Prime? Did you know? Like, we kind of let them tell more of the transactional story where we spend most of our time being like, amazing content. These are the things that you should watch to really get your juices going.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So we've seen similar in our research. So I focus on timing with LinkedIn at the B2B Institute. So I love this because brand is, I think, one of the single biggest competitive advantage elements that anyone can invest in. Is the intangible asset that delivers so much value. And when it comes to building long-term value, which is what brand is a stand-in for, that is one of the single best things you can do. Like when the economic conditions are tough, there's a mental model that we found that is helpful for people to help explain what's going on, and even help finance understand why we should be investing in brand no matter what. Talking about brand in general is difficult because there's a famous behavioral scientist named Rory Sutherland, and he said, he's funny. He's like, talking about brand to a finance person is like talking about the healing power of crystals. It's like you just don't, they just see it as sort of a fluffy thing. But this mental model, we call it the 95-5 rule. Have you heard of it?
No.
So, what it says is it takes the traditional funnel of marketing. Everyone's aware of the awareness, consideration, purchase. It's like one of the most well-known mental models in all of marketing. We think that model is not particularly customer or finance centric because it makes us believe as marketers that it's our job to move people through the funnel. But instead, people are either in market, so ready to buy something right now, or they're out market, meaning they're not thinking about their brand at all. They're not in a buying situation where they need to be thinking about your brand at that point. And during an economic downturn, there's even less of the people that are in market. So you can see how that shifts over time. But if you take that regular funnel and turn it on its side and stretch it out over time, the early part of the funnel represents your current cash flow. That's your people that are ready to buy now in market. The later part of the funnel, that's out market, that's your future cash flow. Early part of the funnel, that's your current demand that people are ready to buy now. And finance can understand that as like the current cash flow. That's where we need to invest in and capture that demand. But that later part, that's a matter of memory generation. And that's the bigger part out into the future when it comes to brand capture. And I think that's the part that people often ignore. So I love what you said, and I would love to share that with you and folks. I think that mental model has been really key for having conversations with finance, kind of understand future versus current cash flow.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, not to use that to plug this, but there was actually one of the reasons I wrote this was because I realized marketers use a language that finance and business do not use. And we shy away from connecting the two. So if they use sales, we don't want, we want to use like, brand awareness and impression volume and clicks. And they're like, I don't understand what this is. So I actually have a whole section in here on like, how do you change every word that we say when you're talking finance into words that they like to hear, which is about money coming in. Basically, it's always like, we're going to invest this much money in blank so we can actually get this much return in, by this time. So it's always like a time-based, like, by this time you're going to get that money back. What I've learned is that's actually really useful because they only hear one thing, which is if I'm going to put money out, I need to know when that is coming back. And I need to know that it's coming back in at least 2x the amount I gave you. Because if you're going to be like, you're going to give me back like 90 cents on the dollar I gave you, they're like, whoa, I don't understand why I gave you any money. So that's one of the things that I have in here is all about like that language. And I'll give you one last thing and then I'll leave it. Is one word that you can just strike out of your vocabulary is spend, or two words, spend and cost. If you go, I want to spend, there you go, you want to replace it with invest. Exactly, that's exactly it. Because anything to do with spend and cost in the brain of any finance person or is money out. There's no such thing as money back in. But invest, they understand that word very well. They know it's money out with money back in. So everything you do in marketing is an investment, not a cost, and not a spend. All right, I'll leave you guys with
Thank
that.
you so much.
No, thank you guys.